Excited for episode number 7, I believe, here on Resball, and this is for DBB as well. We're looking at the Detroit Pistons 10-game progress report. I used to do these written. I'm going to try to do it in podcast form and have somebody every single time to grade my grades for where the Pistons are at. Excited to be joined by who I know first as data-driven Piston fans on Twitter. Does some fantastic work there. Now I know as Andy. So Andy, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell people where they can find you and what you do with Pistons-related stuff.
All right. So my name is Andy. You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan. And basically, I'm a lifelong Pistons fan. When I was in college, I did some work in finance, so I like spreadsheets and data and stuff like that. My wife is a lifelong Pistons fan. She was actually at the Malice at the Palace. She's got an autographed Joe Dumars jersey. Last night, she was at the U of M game, so she got to see Jet Howard play. So we're a basketball family. And I love looking at statistics and using that to help analyze sports and different things. I don't go too far into analytics because there's, flaws to going too far one way. I also love playing poker, and I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And when you combine a lot of this different stuff and apply it to sports, I think you can have some interesting takes on how it applies to things.
So don't mess with Andy. What I took away from all that was the black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Stay away from Andy. That's all I got to say. Keep the distance, right? You got to keep him at distance. Don't let him get a grapple distance. So definitely. So we're going to look into the grades for the Pistons. Right off the bat, I'm going to have some qualifications for this. So we're going to grade the coaching staff before we grade the players. And my own personal thing for this is I'm not going to grade anybody that hasn't played 100 minutes yet, because I think that's too small of a sample size to really judge what somebody's been able to do so far on the court. So with that being said, I'm not giving Kevin Knox, Nerlens Noel, Rodney Magruder, Braxton Key, or Buddy Boeheim any grades because they have not played 100 minutes consistently yet. And again, that's not enough time to show what you can do on the court. And especially if you're like Kevin Knox, who's played the most out of this bunch at 59 minutes. I mean, anybody that's watched these games, can you really say what Kevin Knox has done? Can you say what part of a lineup he's in? He's still trying to find his way. They haven't really put him in a lineup to be okay and have stability in. It's just unfair to ask and grade those guys that haven't played 100 minutes yet. What are your thoughts, Andy?
So no grades for our backup small ball 5 from last night. So Knox was playing at the 5 for us last night for a little bit. So
yeah, but sadly, no. If that role would continue, I would be interested to see what it's like. I mean, you got to try and find somewhere to excel in the court. But yeah, none for last night's small ball 5.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense.
All right, cool. So let's go on into the coaching staff. We're going to begin with grading the coaching staff. Really, I give the coaching staff a B. And I know, first off, if you're one of those people that says fire Coach Casey, please see your way out. Because for one, the coaching staff has had to deal with one thing that hasn't been talked about enough, in my opinion. This Detroit Pistons team has only had 2 available centers all season. First, it was just Duren and Stu, and then Duren got hurt, and they had to rush Nerlens onto the court. It seems like he wasn't ready. But I heard on other podcasts from Omari Sankofa, the Pistons Pulse, and a couple other beat writers who put out tweets of Nerlens was kind of break glass in case of emergency type of deal where they didn't want to play him yet. They didn't want to rush him back. But then when Duren got hurt, they have no other choice. Bagley's still hurt. And then Braxton Key, they still haven't really kind of done anything with. So having to navigate that is tough. And it's part of why every team with size and why people have said so much, this defense is terrible. They can't stop anybody inside. Yeah, it's because, again, they only have 2 available centers, and one of them 6'8". So the size issue is going to be a thing. And, by the way, Bojan also not exactly a great defensive presence inside. So, yeah, having to navigate that is tough. And I think they've done a pretty good job of being able to split those minutes, though, in the front court, knowing this is going to be ugly at times. Coach Casey has also remarked, we want to play Beef Stew and Jalen Duren together. Hashtag the double beef lineup. That's what we've been calling it over at DBB. So excited to see that, but people got to get healthy again. I think they've navigated that very well. The one thing I will say that keeps them out of definitely A range, and what kind of made me think about putting them into B minus, C plus range, is the way they've handled anything other than the starting lineup has not been great. So, Andy, I ask you, do you know how many minutes the lineups outside of the starting lineup have played together? Let me give you some numbers to, kind of think about this first, though. The starting lineup has played 182 minutes and 12 seconds together. Can you guess what the next lineup is and how many minutes they've played together?
My guess is I'm going to say something like 25. Like it's going to be small.
Yeah, and this is what I wanted to have Andy on. It is tiny. It's 22 minutes and 59 seconds. And this lineup is Killian Hayes, Corey Joseph, Isaiah Livers, Hamidou Diallo, and Jalen Duren. I mean, the second most used lineup is 22 minutes. That's nothing. That's part of, again, going back to the health things. But even then, they've had enough guys to fill in some kind of consistent rotation, right? I just don't understand why they're experimenting so much with keeping Ivy in sometimes with backups and then keeping Cade in sometimes in with backups. And then when they go out, Sadiq Bey comes back in. Maybe they just don't have any faith in anybody in the second unit being able to score. But it definitely has hurt, and it's been the thing that I've questioned the most of just outside of the starting lineups, do you have anything figured out yet? What are your thoughts?
So, I mean, since we're not at practices and we don't have the inside information, that's actually one of the reasons why I started tracking the rotation. Kyle Metz, he put out a spreadsheet over the summer. So shout out to him because I use it a lot to play around with the lineups and stuff. And so I look at the different lineups like group dynamics. You add someone in or you take someone out, and it can really change everything. So I'm hoping at least that what Casey's doing is saying, okay, for the first 10 to 20 games, I want to get a large sample of this. And then for the next 10 or 20 games, I want to get a large sample of this. So they have film and data and numbers to look at, okay, this worked well, this didn't work well. For the future, we can do this, we can avoid that. That's what I'm hoping. Because right now, there's just things that don't make sense to me. I understand putting Cade and Ivy on the court a lot because it's the backcourt of the future, which I get it. But if you're going to do that, why do you limit Duren to only 8 minutes with Cade? That doesn't make sense. If we're talking about the future, it's almost all his time on the court should be spent with them. So I'm hoping that they're just planning on breaking the season into segments and then trying to get different lineups, a 10 to 20 game run, and say, okay, this is what we think of this is what we think of that. At least that's what I'm hoping. Because right now it looks like okay, Killian has been I'll wait on Killian. I'll wait till you get there. But just in terms of coaching, I will agree with you that I'm not someone who's fire Casey, because I think he's here for character development, morale boosting, not letting it fall apart. Little things you don't notice unless you really watch the games. When Stu got into foul trouble last night and he left the court, Casey was kind of out of the way, but he actually turned around to go find him so they could dap each other up before he went to the bench. Those guys love each other. As bad as the season gets, he's going to hold this thing together, which I'm someone who believes we have bottom 5 talent in the NBA. So holding it together is critical. Next year, the year after, we can get a better coach for X's and O's and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm not a fire Casey guy.
Yeah, this is exactly why I kept them in the B range for what you're saying. They're just trying things out. And that's what I think a lot of people are failing to understand is this is a year for that exactly experimentation. I mean, even at the highest level of taking Jaden Ivey number 5 overall, that's experimentation, right? The fit is not as seamless, but it's this guy has athleticism and ability that a lot of the guys ranked underneath him do not. So let's try it out. And I mean, Weaver is the guy that a lot of people credit as Oklahoma City drafting Russell Westbrook for a lot of those same type of traits. Is you have this combo of athleticism and the ability to get to the rack and pass, and you probably shouldn't pass it up and see and experiment and try and find ways to make it work. So yeah, absolutely. The only thing again that why I keep them out of the B is like, don't you feel like if your second most used lineup is just barely 22 minutes, that seems like it's not enough data, right? That's just where I question is like, if that's the case of, okay, let's throw in these different factors and then figure it out later. Just again, 22 minutes at the most used lineup after the starting lineup, that just doesn't seem like enough of a sample size to really make any kind of definitive statement. What do you think?
And that's where I'm hoping, like, we'll see, I don't want to say major changes, but big changes, like when Burks or Bagley come in and they'll just make a bunch of changes, because like one of the things I noticed is Killian and Ivy are almost never on the court together. But last night it was different. Last night they actually got quite a bit of playing time together. Until last night, it had been like an average of like 1 minute per game, or like really, really small. And that's something that even though he's played bad, I want to see those two together. You know, I want to see a little bit of Cade, Ivy, and Killian. Like, we want to see those things. But right now, we like you said, we've only seen one thing. Everything else has been pretty much, we're just going to throw stuff on the wall and see what happens today.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point of like Killian and Ivy haven't been out there, I'm looking at the 2-man lineups on Basketball Reference, and I'm not seeing Killian and Ivy in the top 20 of those combinations. So yeah, you are correct in that. That's really hasn't been out there that much. And I would assume it's that they're fearful of the spacing, that there would not be any spacing, or there'd be a really severe lack of spacing if both of them are on the court together. So yeah,
so
that's a good idea.
Not to go on a tangent, but I was kind of disagreeing with someone on Twitter the other day because they were talking about our 3-point shooting and saying overall our 3-point shooting is pretty good. And I said no, because like I think we're around like 34-35%, which I guess you could say is league average. But if you just take out Bojan out of that, we dump to 30%. Like, we are a bad 3-point shooting team. Bay is league average. Livers is above, but everyone else on the team is below average. And that includes Cade. So we don't have spacing. So in almost any pick and roll, everyone can just go under. Everyone can clog the paint. So, but we have this perception. Everyone's like, oh, our 3-point shooting got a lot better. Well, one guy is knocking down threes. The rest, we still don't have it.
Yeah, again, it shows why they traded for Bojan, and a lot of commentators have said that they needed him. They needed that floor spacing. And to your point, you're right. Without Bojan, I'm not sure this floor spacing would be ugly. It would be pretty bad. So again, the coaches get a B, managing just having 2 centers down low, but the lineups after the starting lineup, I really don't know what's going on. Hopefully now, like you said, they have a little bit more of an idea, and now they're able to just throw something out there that can get some kind of rhythm, get going, and try something out that's sustainable instead of just pulling guys in and out, leaving some starters. So the first guy, and I'm going to list the players in ascending order based on minutes. I will give you their minutes and then give you their grade and my reasoning behind it. Corey Joseph is the first one, 10th most minutes so far, 127 minutes played. I think he's been a C+. I know there are a lot of people that just want to rag on Corey Joseph for existing on this Pistons team, but he does the 2 things that is absolutely necessary from the point guard, and that's play defense, solid defense, and shoot threes. Everything else is kind of like, eh. And right now, his overall field goal percentage is 38.5%. That's not going to get it done. He's really been struggling from inside the 2-point arc, 33% there. It's only 12 shots, though. And from 3, he's been 6 of 14, 42.9%. That's always a welcome thing. And then 24 assists to 13 turnovers. You really can't, diss on that. But yeah, also you see the difference when he's in there versus like Killian or versus Hamidou Diallo, who that's probably who he's taking minutes away from. If he's in there, and I don't know that we're necessarily at the point where you want to take minutes away from there yet. Like Corey Joseph just seems like a luxury. And when he's in there, again, yeah, he's doing his job of shooting threes and playing defense, but anything else hasn't been great. And then again, the taking minutes away from other people who need it, that's been more my understanding and like thinking, yeah, this is probably more in the C range.
I agree with that 100%. The way I look at Kojo is if you look at the stats last year when we pulled Killian out of the lineup and replaced him with Kojo, our net rating dramatically different. And I just look at him as like we want to give the time to Killian or to young players, but if we can't function, if we're getting blown out, that is good for nobody. So throw Kojo in, let stuff operate, let stuff function, let people keep some morale in the locker room because at least, you know, the team isn't getting blown out ridiculously. And you just have to do that sometimes. I understand we don't want to see him on the court. And to Casey's credit, even to start the season, he phased Kojo out of the lineup and then he pulled him out. And of course, you see things are ugly and he starts to put them back in, which you got to do it. Like I don't fault him. I mean, right now, you know, we're not talking about Killian yet again, but right now we just have few options. So good grade. I agree.
All right, so moving on. The next guy on the list, the ninth most minutes on the team at 130 is Hamidou Diallo. I'm giving him a B minus. He's somebody that continues to like make things happen. It's not always pretty, but again, when he's out there, he's able to cut and make a gigantic dunk. He can still be a good leaper. He's somebody that's able to run with Killian and Ivy when they do attack and transition, which in my opinion doesn't happen as much as I would like it to. But he's still 0 of 4 from 3. He's really not wanting to take 3-pointers. So that's like, oh my gosh, how many years have you been in the league and there's still not like a corner 3 or something? If you're a wing, you have to be able to do it. Even if you're shooting like 33%, you have to be able to do it. That's been the frustrating part. And then 17 of 42 from 2-point range. The assists are 8 to 5. I mean, he's an okay rebounder, 28 rebounds so far. The defense, though, has been improved. He hasn't been fantastic all the time, but he's been willing to get in people's faces. He was willing to guard Giannis when he was out there. That's gigantic. And Giannis didn't really like bully him the way he did with other players. Again, he didn't stop him, but the willingness to do that, the ability to stay in front of guys, if you watch his defensive tape, will still have mental lapses. But as I stated on Woodward Pistons when I named him my X factor for the season, if he can just be a good defender, that makes up for a lot of other things and extends his NBA career a lot. But B minus somewhere in there because the 3-pointer is lacking, but his ability to get in there on defense. And then, like I said, he always makes things happen on offense. Just like we saw last year when everybody was out with COVID. He just makes things happen.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with this grade too. I mean, most people, when we made our rotations, Kojo and Hami weren't going to be in it. And they've had to play for us. That shows you how injuries have affected our team. So, but like last night when he shot his 3 from the corner, I think he hit the side or the top of the backboard. Like, you know, he's not going to be on our team long term. I don't believe it's not going to happen. But unfortunately, we got to play him right now. But I don't.
Yeah, the 1-2-man lineup I would like to see a lot more is him and Isaiah Livers, because if Hamidou continues to be a better defender, I think that's a fantastic complement, 2-man unit, and they could run pick and roll with each other. Shout out to Scott from DBB. We've been saying this a long time. If they put Hamidou at the 4, at power forward spot, I think that would be worth looking at, especially in the second unit, somebody with that type of athleticism and movement skills. And like I said, there's strength there. It's not like he's just going to get bullied by, especially backup 4s, where you have guys like Davis Bertans and like the Bucks throw out like Jordan Nwora. Like Hamidou will be fine there. He might even dominate some of those. And he could probably attack, 75% of those guys off the dribble. That would work. And then with Livers on the corner, that's at least something of a 2-man unit I would like to see going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hamidou's someone we could get much more out of him if we schemed to use his talents. I really don't think the coaching staff does that, though. They kind of just plug him in and have him do the same thing, you know. I think right now he takes Bay's spot, which if you look at they have completely different skill sets and abilities, so you can't have them doing the same things.
Hopefully it will be Livers that they kind of put in the backup Sadiq Bey spot, and then Hamidou goes into the backup 4 spot. Again, that would be interesting to see because they do have complementary skills. The next guy on the list is the apple of everybody's eye in Detroit, the man that was born to be a Piston, Jalen Duren. He's played 145 minutes, 56.1% from the field, and 6 of 6 of 16 from the free throw line, 37.5%. That's been the part where he's got to work at the most. 47 rebounds, 9 blocks, 52 points. Only has had 14 fouls. I mean, I can't help but just give him an A+. This is somebody that everybody was like, maybe he's raw. Even somebody like me was like, maybe he gets time in the G League since they have Nerlens and Bagley, and at the time, Olynyk. So where's his minutes going to come from? But he has continued to just show he's much more mature and much more advanced than what the consensus of people thought. I'm somebody that way back in the draft cycle said, I don't get why people say he's limited. He led Memphis as a freshman in points, in free throw attempts, in field goal attempts, in rebounds, and in blocks. If you're a limited player, as a freshman, you do not lead a veteran-laden team, too. He's the youngest guy on that team in all those statistical categories. You just don't. And Penny Hardaway, the coach, he would have yanked him, just like he yanked Imani when Imani Bates was terrible. So Jalen Duren has been fantastic, and especially as a switch defender, I think that's the thing that really surprised me the most anyway, because I thought he would still be stiff, and that'll be a couple years out that maybe he gets okay at it. But he's already okay at it right now, and the sky's the limit. I can't. Jalen Duren gets an A+. He's been good in the role. And he's been the only consistent center that can at least be in the way. You definitely notice a difference when he's on the court and somebody else is on the court, right? Or am I is that something in my own mind where I've hyped him up too much?
No, I mean, I agree with you. I followed you with the hashtag Start Duren. And for me, looking at the minutes rotation, that's the biggest complaint I have is I want Duren and Cade on the court together more. You can tell he does not have the same lob relationship that he had with Bagley last year, and Duren has to work on how he rolls and just all the details that Bagley's already elite at. That's what he's here for. And so we don't have that. But for me, if they're only getting 8 minutes a night together, if you compared that to 22 minutes a night, it's almost like 2 seasons worth of time that they could have versus what they're doing. So that's what I don't get. And now that Noel is healthy, as soon as Duren's back, I hope that changes, because if he does get 2 quick fouls, put him on the bench and put Noel in his spot, and that's Noel's time in the rotation. Anytime Duren gets in foul trouble, plug him in with Noel. Stu can still keep whatever rotation they want to use. But no, I agree. So I'm someone who actually thought that Duren could have a higher ceiling than Ivy in some ways, in terms of if the jumper doesn't work out, the mid-range doesn't work out for Ivy, I have concerns. But Duren being so young, and I think his passing is underrated, there's so many things that I think he could end up doing that I really believe he's someone that a few years from now will be like, wow, that was a steal.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Charlotte was absolutely moronic for being like, yeah, we're going to take Mark Williams and just let you have Jalen Duren. What a stupid move. What are you watching on film? I do not get it. But yeah, I tend to agree with you in terms of Duren having a higher ceiling than Jaden Ivey. Nothing against Jaden Ivey, but Duren does have defensive player of the year potential and good roll man potential, good lob man potential. Cade loves that lob, and I'm totally 1,000% with you on. They just need to play those two more to get that lob chemistry. Once they have that lob chemistry, then game over. We talk about the lack of horizontal spacing in terms of three-point shooting. How about the lack of vertical spacing? That's where they've missed Bagley the most, I think, is just having somebody else that attacks the rim that way. It's why Cade has had to rely on so much of his mid-range, and why when you watch the games, you see he's meeting 2 to 3 guys at the rim, or he's had to do his kind of hook scoop shot that's just to the left or the right of the rim instead of attacking straight at it. So yeah, totally agree with you on that. And for me too, I'm a believer in Duren being able to hit a 16-foot jumper, because he'll flash it every now and then like he flashed at Memphis. And even if he just has one spot, the way a Udonis Haslem had just one spot. If anybody remembers on those Heat championship teams, Udonis Haslem just had the one spot on the baseline where he had that baseline jumper. And that was enough to unlock everybody else. So Duren having all this other stuff, and then he just has one other little spacing shot, that could be killer.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man.
All right, so the next Piston on the list is Isaiah Livers at 147 minutes so far this season. His grade is the hardest one for me because it's like we know he was a 3-point shooter, right? And he's been a better defender than advertised, but I still give him a B minus because what else does he bring? I have no idea. Same percentage as Corey Joseph, 38.5% from the field, and his inside the 2-point arc game is almost non-existent right now. He is 2 of 7 from inside the line and 28.6%. I'm not going to get it done, man. It's not. I don't know what else you can do at this point. Rebounding, he's only rebounded 17 boards so far, 5 assists to 5 turnovers. I just think he'll have to show a little bit more to be able to get more minutes. They're still going to play him because, again, he can provide spacing, which we just said he's probably the second most consistent shooter on the team. But again, 28.6% from inside the 2-point arc, just 17 rebounds, especially if they want to play him in the backup power forward spot. It's not going to get it done, and you're going to be game planned easy against. Just stay attached to this guy. He can't do anything if he's not shooting threes. Yeah, just let him try and get in there and get rebounds. We can box him out easily. He's only 6'7". He's not a good athlete of getting up there and being able to pull down rebounds. But to end on a positive note, he's been a fairly good weak side rim protector and being able to deter people from getting there in the backup unit. He's at least been the one guy in the backup unit, I think, who's tried to do those things, and it's because of the system he comes from in Michigan and understanding. I've been in this spot before, complimenting Hunter Dickinson, who's not exactly the most mobile. So I have some experience on how to do this, but the athletic limitations are always going to be there. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with him because, and a lot of, actually almost everybody disagrees with me, but I would actually like to see Livers starting and Bay coming off the bench. And it's not, for me, it's not talent. It's just, so in the starting lineup, we want Cade doing things with the ball. We want Ivy doing things with the ball. We want shots for Bojan. So almost anything Bay's doing is like an opportunity cost of the other guys not doing things with the ball. Livers is either going to shoot it or move it, and that's all he's going to do. We could use Bay off the bench, drawing free throws, trying to create offense, and it may not work. Like this year, Bay has been more efficient with what he's doing, which I like, but I feel like too many nights he gets lost, where it's almost like a Livers night, where it's just a quiet night because he just never had the ball to do anything. And for me, I would just like to just see it, just for a few games, see what happens. But moving a guy from a starting spot to the bench, I know there's so much drama and ego that goes with it. It'll probably never happen. But yeah, I mean, I think Livers is just a perfect role player, but don't get too much higher than that. And I think some of us are expecting him to be much, much more than that. Personally, I don't see it. I just think every year he's going to work hard, get a little bit better, but he's going to give you some great shooting, good team defense, high IQ. That's what he is.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the maybe Sadiq needs to come out. We'll return to that topic when we get to Sadiq Bey because I understand the logic behind it. But yeah, you're right. There is other things that go on besides just basketball geometry when you put somebody on the bench. Moving along is Killian Hayes. I mean, Killian Hayes gets an F. There's no way to defend it. Anybody that wants to say higher. He's shooting 16.7% from 3, 18.9% from 2-point range, and then he's 4 of 5 from the free throw line. 31 assists to 27 points. That's the talking point. Like announcers have been saying, "Oh, this is a guy that has more assists than points." It's like, okay, we get it. Do you guys have any other statistical gems you'd like to throw out at us? Please move on from this already. Yeah, Killian's been an F, and he gets an F because it's starting to affect his defense as well. You can see he's just not that into it the more he struggles on offense. And my whole thing with him is this is do or die. You just have to be aggressive now. Stop being in your own head. If you lose that aggression, that's what's going to sink your NBA career. We talked about this on the Woodward Pistons Table Talk this past Thursday, where we faced the Bucks. The Pistons faced the Bucks twice this past week. And if anybody watched the broadcast, they did the same stupid statistical thing with Javon Carter. Oh, this guy hasn't scored any points yet. But then they would talk about his defense, and that's what you noticed. He was able to get on Cade and stick with him and stay with him and frustrate him. He was able to get on Ivy and pretty much blank him in that first game. So that's Killian's path to being an NBA player, an NBA veteran, is just look at somebody like Javon Carter. Somebody else in the comments there about Patrick Beverley, same type of thing. It does not matter as much what they do on offense as it does on defense. You can put them out there with the starters because of that defense and that they have enough complementary skills. And even though Javon Carter didn't score much, if you look at his percentages from his time with the Bucks, he's been hyper efficient, just being able to space out the floor for Drew Holiday, for Chris Middleton, for Giannis to fill in that point of attack defender who can space out and not waste shots. Like Killian's got to get in that mindset now. Just I need to be a pit bull on defense, stay aggressive on offense, because it's going to come and you just can't shut it down now. That's what's going to sink him out of the NBA. We're all rooting for Killian too, but there's no way to say it. He's an F.
Yeah, he's an F. I was somebody who thought this year he would put it together enough to either stay or be worth trading for something. But last night in the first half, there were just signs where it was like Ben Simmons, where he would pass like on a fast break. I think he passed the ball and he slowed down, in my opinion, so he wouldn't get it back. Like he didn't want to have the ball back. And there's too many situations where it seems like he's avoiding driving to the hoop or moving into positions where he might end up having to shoot. And for me, that means like he's broken. He's a great defender. He's an amazing passer. I would actually like to see him and Cade or Ivy doing some pick and rolls where he's doing a short roll because his passing is fantastic. But if he's never going to attack the basket to score, it's not going to work. Yeah, I had hoped for him, but he's an F, and I think he's unfortunately going to be done soon. Thankfully, our record is going to be so bad, we may be able to give him opportunities, and not bad because of him. Like we have so many other problems that our record could be so bad that he still gets playing time, but eventually we're going to have to cut his playing time because it's been that bad.
Circling back, this is not an excuse. All right, listen to me. This is not an excuse for Killian's bad play. But circling back to the lineups, the starting lineup has been the most right. Every 22 minutes, and then Killian, you're out here with Ivy. No, now you're out here with Hamidou. No, now you're out here with Cade. No, you're out here with Sadiq. No, now you're out here with none of the starters. It's hard to do anything. And then, oh, by the way, we were going to rely on you to score all these points in the second unit. Yeah, that's the part that's been tough for him. But again, how you handle it is differently. We're all rooting for you, Killian. If you ever listen to this or see this, like, just be aggressive. We know you can be a fantastic defender. We know you can be like a Javon Carter or Patrick Beverley. Just stay aggressive. It's going to come, man.
Yeah, and I do believe, he hopefully will figure it out in a new team, new environment, new situation. It happens for some players. It may never happen for him. And unfortunately, the NBA is tough. But he has everything there. It's just something's going on in his head.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on that. I don't want him to see you succeed on another team. I'm just sick of these guys that leave Detroit like Chris Middleton or Bruce Brown, probably forgetting a couple names in here, that all of a sudden they go somewhere else. And it's like, oh, yeah, it's a perfect role for them. Look at how good they are. Like, oh, yeah, look at this. Now they're helping Giannis win the title. It's like, come on, just don't let this happen anymore. Let them work it out here. I want Killian here to work it out. So moving forward, the other guard who's taken Killian Hayes' spot for sure is Jaden Ivey. He's played 284 minutes. All right, this is the one where it gets tough for me. And honestly, I'm going to be honest. I'm hesitant to give him anything lower because I've already been kind of branded like the Ivy skeptic or the Ivy hater, but I'm trying to keep it real here. Yeah, he's been fantastic in those first couple games. He came out like gangbusters, shooting well in those first 4 games, and then he got sick. And ever since he's come back, he really has not looked like himself as much. So I'm hoping what that is just him, getting his lungs back or getting his strength back. And in the last 5 games, 14.2 points. That's great. 1.6 assists, though. That is definitely down. 2.2 turnovers. And shooting 25% from 3. That's the part where I'm like, I knew that regression was going to come. I thought it would be like it was his past season at Purdue, where he started off the year super hot, staying over 40, but as the year wore on, the shooting numbers started to go on. And if you just looked at the year 2022, he shot like 30% from three. If you looked at the second half of the season, he shot under 30% from three. So again, I'm not a shooting expert. I don't know anything about mechanics, but my gut would tell me there's something either with lower body to where you're not getting enough lift and you're not getting enough thrust behind that three as the season wears on. So it might be a mechanical thing as well. But I say all that to say I give him a B, somewhere B plus, because he has been the spark when you needed it. Even on the nights where he struggled, or even on the nights where he hasn't been the guy giving him the ball or really letting him shine, he's still been able to make things happen. That Warriors win, this is where I'm at with Killian to give you, or not Killian, excuse me, Jaden Ivey, to give you an idea. The win against the Warriors, do you remember the starters? Out of the starters, who was the one guy that did not score 20 points in that game? Do you remember?
I don't remember who the one starter was who didn't, because everyone played great in the starting lineup, but I don't remember who the one was who didn't.
It was Ivy. When you click on Bleacher Report to see what the Pistons did, who was the one guy that got the highlight package?
Well, that's going to be the thing with Ivy, is he's always going to get the highlight package. And that's why you'll get some people saying, oh, Ivy is going to be our guy. It's not Cade. But that's based on like highlights and super athletic feats, but it's not based on controlling the game and what you're actually doing. But as far as your grade for Ivy, I agree with it. I might be a little bit higher because I expected him to have more turnovers. I expected him to struggle a little bit more finishing at the rim. And I'm not a believer in his three-point shooting. It's not a knock against him. But when you watch his shots, like he knocks some down, but his misses are all over the place. There's like no consistency to how he's missing. So for me, when he hits a few, in my opinion, it's just good variance. Like, oh, he got a hot streak where he made some, but it's not like consistently his shot goes one way or the other. It goes every time. You don't know where it's going every time he shoots it. So I'm not a believer. I mean, I think he can improve it, but right now, I don't believe he's going to maintain like I think it was at like 35% or whatever. I don't believe he's going to maintain that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. His percentage right now is 31.6%. So Jaden Ivey's shooting splits right now is 50.7 from 2, 31.6 from 3, and then 71.9% from the free throw line. I think the one thing, there are two things that kind of get lost in the Ivy talk about his intelligence, in my opinion anyway. Number one, he really knows how to attack a defense. Like that is just innately within him. If there's anything about him being a coach's son, it's that. Like you said, the wide variance of his shots, of his misses. But you look at those shots, and they're not bad shots. Like he's never taking one where it's like, dude, what are you doing? Even the mid-range stuff and the floater, he doesn't have the touch for yet. But you look at those shots, and you're like, yeah, you should take that shot. There's none of them that you look at, and you're just like, man, he's just chucking it up there. He doesn't know what he's doing. He really knows how to attack, whether it is to use his speed to get through that seam in the defense. And even if he meets somebody like a Brook Lopez at the rim, yeah, he should be attacking Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez is old, right? Just try and break his ankles. You're going to get him one time, and that's going to get him to think. So, yeah, that's why I think it's more towards that B+, because you just can't – that's something you can't teach, right? As somebody who innately knows how to attack the defense that way. Even if his three-point shot is going to go wide, and even if he doesn't quite have the mechanics yet, when you turn that film back on, yeah, you just can't knock the shot choice. You can't knock the shot selection. It'll just have to be ironed out more. The free throws, though, are a little bit disappointing for me, but also I'm like, he's a rookie. Can you really hold him accountable for this? And this is, again, why it's a B+. He has taken 32 free throw attempts, which currently is 4th on the team. I honestly expected him to lead the team in free throw attempts because of how well he can attack the basket. Maybe he was missing just that one game, and again, he got sick, so maybe he's still trying to get his legs and his lungs back together. I expect that to go up more just as the season wears on. If he has fresh legs, then watch out. Like, especially all these older teams, he'll be able to take advantage of more. And again, more Ivy praise. The way he's attacked when he notices, oh, I have a big guy on me, or oh, I got an old guy on me. Then he's really like gone after them and trying to ISO and attack. Like in those Bucks games when he had Wesley Matthews on him, it was like, this guy's like 40 years old. I know I got to at least try out and outrun him because I got him there at least. Let me give you some points. Then the assists have been good too. This is where I'll end my Ivy talk. He's had 30 assists to 22 turnovers. The assists have been good. He's been really good in the drive and kick game, meaning he's been able to drive to the rim and then go baseline and kick it out to one of the shooters in the corner. That's something that I thought needed to be a staple of the offense. Run high pick and roll. Somebody set a pick above the three-point arc at the top, and then Ivy can get free. The center's put in this bad position. Somebody's got to rotate over, and then there should be a shooter open in the corner. Like, that's money, and that should be a staple of the offense. Teams are starting to figure that out, though, already, which is a little concerning because I thought that wouldn't come until, like, towards January. If you take that out of his game and cut off those shooters and he's baseline, like he's stuck in no man's land because he's essentially under the basket with nobody to pass it out to. And the Bucks game, again, is a good example of doing this. He started to split the double team or split the defenders to where he would go through the guy guarding him into Lopez, trying to draw contact or just getting around him. And he was pretty good at doing those things. But when they tried those, running baseline to kick out the shooters, they really weren't there anymore. And like you see, the assist numbers went down in these past couple games. This is where I really am excited to see what Ivy does next, because the knock on him, right, is no mid-range game, no floater, no touch there. How is he going to respond to this? Because this was an inevitability, right? They're going to force him away from being able to get to the basket. In the NBA, we're always going to cut off what you do well. And how are you going to respond to that? That first Bucks game is a good one to look back to see this is what happens when a defense turns Ivy into a jump shooter. How is he going to respond to that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of fans hate the series where we play teams twice in a row. I actually like them because you can see the good teams make adjustments. They take away what you were good at the last game. And are you a team that can adjust and figure things out? And obviously we can't. We've got this is what we're good at. When teams take it away, we struggle. But if they're going to be successful long run, they have to have other things they can go to. They have to be able to make adjustments, and that determines which young players go on to become all-stars and which ones, they're just a good player, but they can't make the next jump.
And then one last thing on Ivy, so I lied about that being my last thing on Ivy. Go check out Motor City Hoops, Bryce Simon's breakdown on Ivy's defense. The defense has not been good, but he's a rookie. If you expect rookies to be good on defense, then you must be living in fantasy land. It's like a very, very, very small percentage that a rookie, especially a guard and a wing, comes in and they're awesome. It's such a big adjustment period. So anybody talking about Jaden Ivey's defense is bad. Yeah, I mean, it's bad. It's supposed to be bad. Give him a year. We'll see how it is in the next year. Not to excuse him. If it's more of an effort thing of like him not wanting to defend people, give you an example. So James Edward III tweeted out after the Bucks game, I think, about how many times Ivy has hit the floor and then gone to complain to the ref and said, if you've noticed this, now the Pistons are in a lot of 4-on-5 mismatch situations because Ivy's doing this. Somebody needs to talk to him about this. That's the thing. If that continues, then yeah, that definitely should knock his grade down and people should be calling that out because he can't be doing that. And it's not an Ivy thing. If you look, Cade and Giannis are complaining to the refs just as much as Ivy is, but the difference is they're not standing there and like trying to be courtroom or on the court lawyer stating their case. Well, their teammates are on the other end. They're doing it on the move. They're doing it on timeouts. Like, come on, man, you just got to be more, smart about how you do it, when you do it. Just get back on defense, please. Like I said, hopefully somebody talks to him about that, and also how many times he's hit the floor. That's a little bit concerning, but definitely the complaining part, that would be something that if it continues in the future, yeah, should affect the grade and should be something to call out. But right now, again, he's a rookie, he's on defense, still going to learn it. Everybody struggles. Moving up the ladder, we have Beef Stew next at 289 minutes. Shooting splits of 62.5%, 26.3 from three-point range, and then 74% from the free throw line. Finally, he is scoring over 10 points per game, 12.7 points per game so far this season, 9.7 rebounds per game. Beef Stew gets an A+. I've said it a couple times. Everybody except Isaiah Stewart sucks on defense on this team. So if you're going to say like, oh, his team's bad or whatever, you can't say it about Beef Stew. They have to throw him out there on ball carriers in the third and fourth quarter sometimes because nobody else is really able to stay with them. Both Bucks games, his defense against Giannis was good. It was really good, I thought. It's just there's nobody behind him. Giannis is a gigantic man with those super long Gumby arms. Isaiah a lot of times frustrated him, made him miss the initial shot, and then Giannis put it back because, again, there's nobody behind him able to either get that rebound or be a rim deterrent. Beef Stew has done an amazing job on defense, in my opinion, been the only good defender on this team thus far. The three-point shot hasn't come around, but if you expected that to be right away, like, again, I don't know what to say. This is the first time he's done this under live fire in an NBA season where that was the talk of the offseason. So any smart scouting department is going to be like, yo, man, stay on this guy to frustrate him to shoot threes and get him to not get his confidence up in that. And it's been an up and down spark. This is also why I gave Killian an F. If you just watch Isaiah Stewart film and then you just watch Killian Hayes film, yeah, Isaiah Stewart's having these terrible misses as well. He airballs a few, but it's not getting him in his head. And he's also knowing like, okay, this is when I should take it. This is when I shouldn't take it. And I think it'll iron his stuff out. Even if he's a 33% three-point shooter, that's a big deal and a big difference. And then he's flashed the mid-range one of like that 10 to 16-foot mid-ranger, which, again, can unlock so much more. Has been a little bit better as a finisher inside the three-point arc, as evidenced by that percentage. 62.5% inside the two-point arc. That's been great. And, oh, by the way, he's leading the team in free throw attempts. Him and Sadiq Bey, they must have been training together because the way they attack the rim now, especially off the dribble, like they just understand, oh, if I get this angle or, oh, if I go straight at this guy, I'm going to get more contact and more than likely I'm going to be able to draw free throws. And then you add that on top of what he's already able to do underneath the rim, where he's probably going to draw contact just by being as physical as he is and catching people off guard. So, yeah, you just can't say enough great things about how much Isaiah Stewart has improved this season. Again, team leading 50 rebounds, team leading 97 boards. We love you, Beef Stew.
So the area that I'm going to disagree with you for his grade is, and I don't want the team to have him start shooting less threes, even though he's not making them. And the reason is I don't want to have over the summer and going into next season this idea of he's gonna space the floor for us. It's like, nope, we're doing this project now. Stick to the project and show me he can shoot the ball. Now, it doesn't have to be on high volume, but if we start going back to him only taking 1 or 2 attempts, then I really think it changes whether or not he can stretch the floor. But my biggest thing is he's got to put his body on some screens. And I think this is the whole team. Noel has been horrible, but he has put his body on people for screens. That's the one thing I've seen. He slips a lot, but if you actually watch, he's at least gotten in people's way. I swear almost every Piston, like every screen is a ghost screen where we're not really touching anybody. And I just don't see how our offense is supposed to function when we're not actually giving our guys any advantage to work from. So that would be an area for a lower grade for Stu, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. This is the thing that drives me bananas. And like you said, it's like a ghost screen. Can you explain what a ghost screen is? Because this is where I haven't factored this into the grade for anybody, because I see it with everybody now, every single big on this team, that I think this is a coaching thing. And like, why are you asking them to do this since everybody seems to be doing it?
Well, like sometimes like Bojan can do a ghost screen where he's running by someone because he's running out to the 3-point line and people have to follow him because he'll knock it down. But for us, and half the time, I don't even know, and maybe the players don't even know, like the ball handler doesn't know what's happening, because on the screen, sometimes it looks like a ghost screen where we're faking a screen and we run by. Sometimes it looks like they're barely setting a screen and slipping and rolling to the basket. But a lot of times Stu doesn't roll hard to the basket. He kind of just slips and kind of clogs the paint and kind of takes that away. And then rarely do we actually get a hard screen. So a lot of times with their movement, I can't clearly tell, like, what the hell are we doing? Like, is this supposed to be a screen? Is it supposed to be a ghost? Are you slipping? And it's so confusing, but we have all this movement that creates, like, no advantage, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, real quick, can you explain to the audience that might not know, like, what is a ghost screen?
So when you see a player running up to set a screen, the defense will start making adjustments, thinking, okay, we have a pick and roll where the ball handler is going to go this way. But instead of actually making contact with the defender, you run right by him. So it's like you're faking that play. And sometimes you're doing it so that the defense will start moving and start making adjustments. Sometimes you're hoping that if the guy was planning on hedging or moving out or how they were going to counter it, you can use that advantage to open up a player on the other side. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. So, yeah, if you notice that, I mean, if anybody that's watched the Pistons should notice that, like, oh, yeah, they're not really, when they go to set screens, they're not staying there and they're just kind of running away from it. That's what's happening, because you might be like, what in the world is going on? Yeah, this is where, again, I haven't really factored it into the grades of the coaching yet, because maybe it is just, it's more like, well, we only have two centers. We don't want to wear out the two guys we do have from just setting hard screens. It's a long season. Maybe when we have Bagley back, this will be more of a thing. But, man, it has driven me bananas. And yeah, to your point with Beef Stew, this is where it's hard to think about it, too, because they want him to do pick and pop stuff, right? So that makes sense why they're having him set more ghost screens. If you're setting harder screens, it's easier for both defenders, Beef Stew's defender and the ball handler's defender, to stick with you if you're just staying there. Whereas if you're consistently running these ghost screens, you got to be moving more. And so there's more, time for being able to mess up, because it's more of a quicker decision that those defenders have to make. But yeah, when you have Cade and Killian, whose number one thing as offensive options, whereas pick and roll ball handlers, this is where I'm starting to be like, I'm not fire Coach Casey, but I understand if this is where your main beef is at, because they just haven't had enough people setting hard screens to get them open. And the instances where we have seen it with Cade, like, you've seen a gigantic difference, right? Him getting those wide open mid-rangers, or him being able to be one-on-one with a center and have some kind of mismatch advantage there. Again, my hope is that this is going to be more of a thing going forward, especially with Jalen Duren. And Jalen Duren, too, has not been asked to do this in college either. So he's learning to do this more in the NBA. And that'll come around. Beef Stew also was not asked to do this in college, so he's learning to do it in the NBA. That's part of it as well, is they just haven't been in a pick and roll heavy system before and haven't been asked to do this as much. But it's still no excuse from the coach's side, and it makes you wonder, like, what was the offseason about? And again, do you remember you have Cade and Killian who thrive in pick and roll settings? But then pushing back again, is this more of a thing, especially with Isaiah Stewart, of like, we want to try this out, experiment, and do these things to help him with his three-point shot and see if this is another threat he can have? Or is it this thing again of, we only have two centers, we don't want to wear them out with having setting hard screens in the first 10 games?
Yeah, and sometimes you have to worry about Cade or Killian or Ivy. Sometimes they go too soon, where they don't let our man set a good screen, and then they get called for a moving one, and then it's an offensive foul. We're already short on bigs. Do you really want to waste your fouls on a moving screen? So I'll cut him some slack, but still, in terms of if this is development, like, this should be like critical, like learning how to set a good screen, learning to wait for the right time to move, the angles, all that kind of stuff is stuff that I hope we see improving for the next 10-game evaluation.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be when they have the full big man health going. If they're still not doing this, then yeah, it's time to start being like, what are we doing here? Why is this consistently still a thing? So the third most minutes on this Pistons team at 311 minutes is the apple of everybody's trade eye, Bojan Bogdanovic. He was shooting over 50% from three. Sadly, it's at 48, only at 48.6% right now. 51.6% from two-point range, and then 94.7% from the free throw line. He's actually third on the team in free throw attempts, and 202 points, 33 rebounds, 12 assists. This pains me to say, but I'm going to give him an A minus because he's a sieve on defense. That's the only knock you can really have on Bojan. But I would, if you want to give him an A plus, I'm totally like understanding of that too because of what you said. He is the team's spacing. Who cares if he doesn't play defense? That's not why he was brought in here. Anybody that wants him to be a good defender is an idiot, right? But on my end, we're the Detroit Pistons, not the Detroit Pistons. We need that D in there, man. So it does drive me a little bananas. And people that have commented about, man, we can't defend nobody in the paint. The Pistons just roll out the red carpet. Bojan's the main reason why it's hard to have good paint defense when he's the power forward. Bojan's the power forward, and then Beef Stew is 6'8" at the center position. But you also notice a difference when it's Bojan at the 4 and Duran at the 5, to where there's more of a deterrent there behind him. So maybe that's the thing. But offensively, man, he's been a flamethrower. You've seen so much of them being able to throw him out there when the offense stagnates or when Cade's double team. I mean, him and Sadiq have been the guys that get it going when Cade can't get it going. This is where, again, the coaching staff I factor in the B. Like, Bojan got here, like 3 to 5 days before training camp, and then they just had to work him in. And they've done a great job of doing that. It has been times of like, oh, let's just take turns. Sometimes Ivy gets it and everybody stands around. Sometimes Cade gets it, everybody stands around. Sometimes Bojan gets it, everybody stands around. Sometimes Sadiq gets it, everybody stands around, which is why the defense have been able to figure out the offense a little bit here and there. But Bojan, you just cannot say enough good about the way he's been able to be integrated by the coaching staff and his own play of continuing to attack from 3. Oh, he gets to the free throw line and does not waste one single shot.
Yeah, no, I agree. His defense has been bad, but I'd give him like an A+, because without him, I couldn't even imagine the spacing and how we would run anything that Cade or Ivy are getting decent reps on what's going on. I mean, I was a little unhappy when we got him because I believe we're bad, and I want to be bottom 3 bad. I don't want to be like, I want us to give us the best chance to change things. And even though he'll help us win games, if your starting wings are going to be Bay and Bojan, we're not defending anybody. And even right now, a lot of people have this narrative of when Bagley comes back, things are going to get a lot better. Over the summer, we were talking about with Bay and Bagley being our forwards, this is not going to defend anybody. So that's not going to change. And honestly, it doesn't bother me because I think Kuka Hill said this. He's like, I wouldn't mind having like before when we had KO, like Bagley and KO on the floor at the same time, because we're going to score. We got a vertical threat. We got floor spacing. Our defense will be horrendous. Who cares? Develop our offensive sets, get reps in with good offense. And I agree. And I think that's what we're going to do this year. Run some good offense, learn on that side of the ball, develop that. We don't have the personnel to play good defense. And just along with talking on Bojan, I still disagree when people are like, we got him for nothing. If you look at the Jazz, Kelly Olynyk is balling for the Jazz. His actual three-point percentage is higher than Bojan's. He's shooting above 50% from the 3. I believe on our team, if he was on our team, he would have the 3rd most three-point makes. He has 19 this year, and Bay has 20. But I think Bay took like 19 more shots to make that one more 3. Like, he's been playing very well. And if you look at when we got Bojan, it was right before camp. And now you have to imagine everything the coaching staff had planned is going to be different. And then when Bagley gets hurt, everything they had planned is going to be different. So for me, even with healthy players, I thought we would win 27 games max. Now, if you include injuries, we're not going to win a lot of games. But I kind of went off of this tangent, so we'll go back to the player reviews.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because it's an interesting talk about how much Kelly Olynyk's balling out now and what the lineup would have looked like. And yeah, the expectations of if everybody's healthy and now that everybody's not healthy, what do we do, right? And it's also thrown a wrench into being able to get some kind of offensive consistency going. It's why they played the starting lineup so much together. Is just that's the lineup they know has people that can keep the offense and the defense afloat. For as much as I just dissed on Bojan as a defender, he's at least positionally understanding where to go. He's been on a top defense consistently in Utah, so it's not like they just took him apart. They took him apart in the playoffs, absolutely. That's where the difference between being, Draymond Green's 16-game player, Bojan's still kind of in question for that. Definitely going to continue to score, but was taken advantage of on defense in the playoffs, but has played amazingly well. Definitely deserving of that contract. Real quick though, what are your thoughts on the Bojan extension?
At first, I did not like it, but then because I honestly just wanted to flip him, even like if we can use him for the season for development, flip him at the trade deadline, that would have been great. But the extension, honestly, is perfect. It is probably one of the best things Weaver has done, because now there is zero pressure to trade him at the trade deadline. We can use him for the entire season. We could still trade him before the draft if we're able to get another draft pick or able to move up. So I could honestly see him getting traded before, the NBA draft, actually, as far as depending on what we're looking at doing. The free agency class doesn't look very good. So we would have, if he was available, we'd probably look to sign him anyway. But now we avoid having a bidding war with some of these other teams when there's a lot of teams that are going to have money. Like some of these guys, like the guy in Phoenix, Cam Johnson, he'll probably get paid. PJ Washington in Charlotte, he'll probably get paid because teams have money. And somebody's going to overpay. And we can avoid that because we already got the contract signed, but we still have the option of moving them. So I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, good point on the trade part. That actually ups his trade value. And for anybody that wants to know the terms of the deal and if he has to wait a certain period to get traded, he does not because of the way the terms of the deal. And you can go look that up. That's a whole other deal that would take a lot longer to explain here. But yeah, the idea that he's not expiring anymore, because especially when people are dealing for an expiring player, if they don't need him immediately, they can be like, why am I going to pay something to trade for this guy when he could just leave? And I could just wait a couple months and then be able to sign him and I don't have to give away anything. Now it's like, oh, Pistons have all the control within this. And if I want him, I do have to pay him because now he's locked in for a while. So yeah, absolutely fantastic move by Weaver. And the money staying the same to me was more of the win. If you're an aging player, either keeping the money the same or having it in a descending order, there's really no downside to that, especially with the salary cap supposedly about to spike a lot. That contract is going to look really good. Just like the Jeremy Grant contract looked fantastic a year or two after signing it, right? We received so, I can recognize these guys and get the price point right, then it's never really going to blow up in my face.
Yeah, and the second year of the extension is actually only guaranteed for like $2 million. So it's really only like a 1-year extension, but the team who has him has the option for the third year. So it's a really good contract.
Absolutely. So we're on to the top two guys. At 316 minutes, second most minutes played on the Pistons is the Iron Man of the Detroit Pistons, somebody who just never misses games, Saddiq Bey. He has shooting splits right now, 54.5% from two, 35.7% from three, 89.4% from the free throw line. Has scored 162 points so far, 48 rebounds, which is third most on the team, and then 15 assists to 16 turnovers. And he's gotten to the line 47 times, which is second on the team, which I think surprises a lot of people. Again, going back to what I said about Vistu, the way that Saddiq Bey has understood, I'm just a big body dude that has a solid handle, how to attack the rim. And you see that 54.5% in the arc. Like as a small forward, that's fantastic. You just can't underestimate that he's not wasting 2-point shots. He's having to take some tough ones too as well. 61.5% is his true shooting percentage right now. It's hard to argue against that being bad. Free throw attempt rate is 42.3%. So yeah, he's not wasting shots. He's getting to the line a ton. The defense is where it's disappointing. So I'm thinking he's like a B plus range because of that defense. The defense is really where it has to come around. But again, nobody on this team has been great. And when you have to be out there as a starter with a rookie who's supposed to be guarding point guards, a sieve at the other 4 spot in Bojan, and then a center who is smaller that has trouble defending bigger guys. And then the 5th guy out there is the offensive superstar. Again, this is not an excuse. This is to say of the entire lineup. Like defensively, they are the antithesis of what they are offensively, I would say. They just haven't really figured out the right combination to help everybody out. Beef Stew, again, has to carry or has to switch on ball handlers towards the end of games, which what does everybody else do at that point, right? And yeah, Sadiq, he got chewed out by Beef Stew a couple nights ago. I think it was in that second Bucks game quite a bit by Beef Stew. Like, what are you doing on these rotations? But I would love to go back and look at the film on that to see what Bojan and Ivy are doing on the rotations. Because as we know, one person messes up the rotation and somebody else has to come over. That's going to be a big thing. But yeah, you clearly was not happy with Sadiq, because a lot of us aren't. I've noticed Bryce Simon, Motor City Hoops, call him out on defense. I believe Keith Black, Charlatan over there, the Piston historians call him out, a couple other people. Because, yeah, this is what we wanted out of Sadiq is 3 indeed. The 3, I think, is still there. Yeah, the percentage is 35.7. It's average. But, again, he's had to take tough ones. And of all the people that have had to sacrifice on offense, I think Sadiq has had to the most. And yet he's second on the team in free throw attempts. I think partially because none of this worked. Here, Sadiq, do something, shoot a 3 or like drive in. And then he's had to do it. And he's been, pretty good at doing that. They really haven't figured out his specific offensive role yet. And he understands he just epitomizes the team along with Beef Stew of, hey, we got Bojan in. Fantastic. Let's get him some more 3-point shots. Let's give him the ball more. I'll figure out what to do in the meantime. He's scoring 16.2 points per game. And again, still being super, super efficient with his role not quite worked out yet. B+. You cannot underestimate him getting to the free throw line and the Pistons being able to get all these guys to the free throw line more and more between Ivy, between Cade, between Beef Stew. I mean, that starting lineup getting the free throw line a ton. And Sadiq is, I think, the best example of that so far.
So, I mean, I'll agree with the grade, but I have to be honest. I have a bias against Sadiq Bey, and I think he's a great player. But I feel like his game is like an old man game because of he's not super athletic, so it just doesn't look pretty.
So and I want to hear my NBA comp for him, which the more and more I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know why people don't like him. It's Caron Butler.
Yeah, that's fair. And so give me your opinion on this idea that I have. Most Pistons fans treated Sadiq Bey like he was actually Bojan, like he had Bojan's career, like he's that lights out of a shooter, scorer, like he does that. But the reality is he's not that yet. Like, in my opinion, peak prime Sadiq would be Bojan. Like that's like the height of his powers will be what we already have in Bojan. So that's where I feel like the overlap with them creates a big problem, at least for me.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I feel like I'm the worst person to ask of like what Piston fans want, because I'm like, Kendrick Lamar's line, antisocial extrovert. That's me. Like I'll look at things, but I'm not going to be in there like trying to be a part of Pistons Twitter as actively as others are. So I think I'm the wrong person to ask about that. But I do think most people view him still as like this knockdown 3-point shooter that always is going to be above 40%. I mean, I tend to be somewhere in the middle of like, they're not wrong, because again, the types of shots he's had to take along with Cade are incredibly difficult because of where they are, when they are, especially this year. It seems like he's just had more of those late in the shot clock. Like I said, none of this works. Sadiq, do something. Bojan's had a lot of those too, though, of like, oh, this didn't work. Like just shoot a 3-man type of thing. So I think he's okay. Again, why I keep saying Caron Butler more and more. You see Caron Butler's career, like he's always over like 15, 16 points in the first couple of years. There are a couple years where he was a 20-point per game scorer. Wasn't much of a 3-point shooter until the game changed. Somebody who's 6'7", 228 pounds. But at his peak was able to get to the free throw line a ton. He was a pretty good passer. at his peak, again, like 4.9 assists as a supplementary player. He's like around 2 to 3, always a solid rebounder. Tough Juice was his nickname, if anybody remembers, because, he did it on both ends. And I think that's just where Sadiq needs to come around a little bit more, is being that two-way guy. But it goes back to the coaching staff of them trying to figure out what they are right now and how to iron everybody's role out. So that's just the thing. I don't think the coaching staff really has ironed out his role quite yet. Last year was all those COVID injuries. So they're like, yeah, man, you got to be the go-to guy now. So all that three-point shooting, like, you take them when you need to, but we need somebody to create inside. And then this year it's like, oh, we got Bojan in here. So you kind of got to be a floor spacer, but not really. We need a secondary ball handler alongside Cade. And, oh, by the way, Ivy kind of does that too. So, I mean, I know it's a long-winded answer to say. It's hard because his role has had to change the most out of any of these guys. Beef Stew's roles pretty much stayed the same, right? Cade's role, we know what Cade's role is. Ivy's the next one that I think they're really trying to figure out. He's been the one that I think has frustrated me the most because they don't use him off ball as much as they should. He's a fantastic off-ball creator. If you go back and watch the Purdue tape. And then Bojan's what Bojan is, right? We know what he is. We know what he brings to the table. He's plug and play to do what he has. So that's just my thing with Sadiq, is just I'm not sure what his role is quite yet.
Yeah, no, and I would agree, like, for his grade, I would give him an A in terms of trying to adapt and adjust with whatever the team and the coach wants. Like, that's not easy to do. And for a lot of young players, that creates problems and tension and this and that. And he's been more than willing to just try and figure it out, whatever's asked of him. So for that part, he's surpassed my expectations.
All right. One last thing on Sadiq. This whole talk of, like, he's got to go to the bench. You talked about putting Livers in there.
So I would.
If you want to say anything else before I do, please go ahead, because I have thoughts.
So putting Livers in there is only one option. Like, there's other better options, in my opinion. Like, one would be moving Bay to the bench when Bagley is ready, so that we have Bagley and Stu starting, and actually moving Bojan to the 3. And this is where I really want to see some games with different lineups to see what we have, because I know we talked before about having Bagley at the 5, which I don't think he can defend, but the whole team can't defend. So let's just look at offensively. Okay, let's try him at the 5. But then Casey talked about having him space the floor, which I think is absurd and doesn't make any sense at all. But if you wanted to start Duren and Stu and move Bojan to the 3, Bagley could be our backup 5, and Livers is our backup 4, and Bay is our 3. That's fine. And even moving Bay to the bench, I would still look to find ways to stagger the minutes where he's still getting the same amount of minutes, but he's just not starting the game. But, I mean, I've looked at a few different rotations. I just feel like Bojan and Bay are like the same guy doing the same things, and having them both in the lineup at the same time is kind of like we're missing some balance here from other things we need. Like, we should never have a lineup with no vertical lob threat on the court. The numbers just show Cade is better. So and right now we've had injuries, but when Bagley's back, there's no reason. And having Duren and Bagley on the court at the same time, that doesn't make sense at all. And then having a lineup with no lob threat, like, that's just confusing.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in terms of having a lob threat on the court at all times, knowing how much Cade loves the lob. That should be a priority. If that's not a thing by the end of the season, I really question what the direction of the team is, because that's just an easy thing to help out so much and make your superstar happy. My thing with moving Sadiq to the bench, and I've seen this with a couple people, or even moving Bojan to the bench, is more than just basketball. Sadiq is due a contract extension pretty much this offseason, right? Him, Killian, and Beef Stew are the ones that are up for extensions out of the rookies that Troy Weaver has drafted. He's the one that should get paid the most out of the bunch. Moving him to the bench seems like a recipe for contract negotiation disaster, in my opinion. Not to say that Sadiq would get mad, but his representation might get mad. And if I was them, I would be too. It's just like, what else do you want from this guy? And now you're moving him to the bench. Like, how is that going to see his perception as a player? Again, I don't have any inside information or anything, but just thinking of other things. I wouldn't want to play somebody who's playing well. He's playing well and he's doing everything that you're asking him to do, and then you. That's just the thing too. It's hard to see if this is something Sadiq brought to the table. Then cool. Like if he wants to do it, fantastic. But if it's just like, no, we got to do this now because we brought in a 34-year-old shooter who works out well, who's not part of our future plans, but we want you on the bench. It just seems again like a recipe for contract disaster. And on the other end too, Bojan does profile more as a bench player because of the lack of defense and his able to be creating and pull shots out of nowhere, and he probably cooked most second units, but it's just somebody you just traded for and who's been playing lights out. To demote him and say, hey, you got to go to the bench, just again seems like a recipe for him to be like, why? I've been in this league this many years. I continue to prove myself. There's nothing. And oh, by the way, they have nobody behind him that you can make an argument for, like logically, of saying, yeah, this guy deserves to be playing over you. That would be the thing I think is more anybody arguing to take Bojan to the bench or Sadiq to the bench. It's not going to happen because nobody else on this team has stepped up to take their minutes away from them. They shouldn't take their minutes away from them. If they want to stagger them, fine, but keep the minutes the same. Just stagger them with somebody else and to try things out. But right now, like it can't happen.
So now thinking in terms of contracts, so do you believe that Stu and Bay should get paid starter level contracts for the center position and for the small forward position?
Well, it depends on what you think of the number as that, because everybody's number is different. I think both of them negotiations should start around like $20 million per year, which might sound like a lot, but with the way the salary cap is going to go up, like even right now, look at Jeremy Grant's contract, which is $20 million per year. It's good. It's solid. It's fine. And if they're producing at the same level, then yeah, they're worth that. Beef Stew is worth this utility defender who can occasionally space the floor, who doesn't waste shots, who's getting the free throw line a ton more. I think he just is somebody that can be a playoff type difference maker that hasn't been proven yet, but it's something I definitely believe in because you cannot take him off the court. He's maybe space deficient, but so is somebody like a Robert Williams. Yeah, Beef Stew's not the same level of defender as Robert Williams is, but Robert Williams also doesn't have a lot of these things like the free throw shooting that Beef Stew possesses. So, yeah, I think he does. And then Sadiq's the tough one because of the small forwards. Like small forwards, wings run the league, right? Paul George, I guess LeBron's less of a wing as he used to be. Kawhi Leonard, these guys. So that's going to be the tougher one. But, I mean, if it came down to it, something like 20, 25 million, you got to keep him, right? And, again, 20 to 25 million might seem like a lot, but with the way the salary cap is going to spike up, it's really not that bad. I think Anthony Simons got 4 years, 100 million. If that's what Sadiq's getting, I think it's totally fine. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, see, for me, I would say, like, I look at for Stu, I would look at like Kevon Looney, and I think he's only like 10 or 12 million per season. And for Bay, I mean, I see it as under 20 because in my opinion, if you're going to spend that money, and so a lot of people will disagree with me because I kind of feel like we got rid of players to turn our franchise around, and we got the young core. But I also believe Killian, Stu, and Bay, even though they're part of our foundation as far as like our culture setters, I believe in terms of talent, like the money we would spend on them, we could probably get players who fit more specifically with the talent that we have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is the tough part about it, though, is like, okay, you don't want to pay them that much. You risk losing them. Who are you bringing in instead of them? That's going to be the tough part. In being a long-time Detroit Piston fan, spending money in free agency is probably one of our biggest fears, right?
No, I agree with that. And that's where I think as good as Duran and Ivy have been, like and no Detroit fan wants to hear this, but I would say we're better off actually moving the timeline back a little bit because of what's available in this year's draft. that we could get more high ceiling talent, that we may actually have a possibility of getting a player who actually makes a big difference to pair along with Cade and Ivy and Duran, and not really looking at the other players we have as the players that are going to move the needle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, my thought of this is talking with everybody at DBB and Woodward Pistons. I've been trying to find like another team that did this rebuild through the draft kind of thing. OKC and the Russ, KD, OKC teams are like the ideal, obviously. And my thought with Sadiq is he's Jeff Green. If you remember, Jeff Green was there. He was good. He was solid. And then they stupidly moved him so they could bring in Kendrick Perkins. And if you go back in time, they're not going to do that deal again. Kendrick Perkins is an idiot. I do not like him. He was solid center, but like moving him for Jeff Green was such a stupid move. Jeff Green ended up having the heart condition, so maybe that like might have swayed things. But you don't move Jeff Green for Kendrick Perkins in today's NBA for certain, and you just can't let Sadiq Bey walk because Jeff Green's a solid player. He's played in the NBA a very long time. He was always useful as a defender, as a complementary piece. So even if Sadiq is at that Jeff Green level, you got to keep him, and you got to keep that core together. And more importantly, if this is Cade's core and this is what he wants, you have to keep him happy. With Sadiq and Beef Stew, again, what's the upgrade? That's always going to be my question: is what's the upgrade? It's easy to say that, but it's really hard to find upgrades from what they are.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree with that, and I'm not. This isn't like some take to create controversy or anything like that, but I truly wonder how many times Cade passes the ball to Stu that he fumbles the pass, that Cade is wondering, I need a big who can catch and finish, because he mishandles so many passes and he struggles so much finishing in the paint. It just makes me wonder. I mean, I remember before I looked at analytics, I took my kids to a couple of Pistons games, and just the number of times he fumbled the ball when he got it, I was like, oh, man. And then I looked at analytics for his rim finishing compared to other centers, and I was like, oh, he does struggle at that. And for him and Bey, I want to see over the season how well these free throw attempts, how long they stay high. Because if they come down, it's going to affect their field goal percentage in close. And then we'll see if was this like a hot 10-game sample, or is this like a new skill they've acquired in getting to the line.
Word, if I have one like hot take or bold prediction, it's that it will consistently stay there. As long as Cade's on the court, the way the defenses have to account for him in that mid-range game, like Sadiq and Beefster are going to continue to catch people off guard and drive in to where they have to foul them and do these other things because the whole gravity is around Cade. So, yeah, definitely a great conversation we'll return to as the season goes along. But I know we got to move forward. You got places to be today. So final is the apple of everybody's eye for reals. Cade Cunningham, 341 minutes, leading the team in points per game, shot attempts, 47.9% from 2-point range, 31.3% from 3-point range, and then 83.8% from the free throw line, 6.3 assists per game, 3.2 turnovers. The turnover numbers are 63 assists to 32 turnovers, almost 2-1. He makes dumb turnovers still every now and then, but he stays aggressive and he doesn't let those frustrate them. I think that's just the thing about Cade is like always staying aggressive and knowing that I'm going to fit that in that window. I know I'm going to catch people off guard. And again, when your assist to turnover ratio is 2-1, you are, verging on CP3 point God levels. I'm going to give you his updated mid-range numbers here in a minute, but A+, Cade is everything, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. A+. I actually thought he was going to struggle more to start the season, just dealing with the added weight. He looked a little sluggish, but the big thing was the Bagley injury and the lack of playing time with Duran. I thought not having the lob threat was just like last season, it was going to hinder him. So seeing what he's doing right now, I'm excited for when Bagley's back and when Duran and him spend more time together and kind of work that out, that his numbers, other than the 3-point shooting, which just, give it time. It may not be this year. Just give it time. He's been outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to comment a little bit more on the 3-point numbers? Like what would be your answer to, because there are quite a few people on Twitter now of like, oh, his 3-point shot sucks. John Beeline ruined his three-point shot. Look at the arc he got at Oklahoma State. Look at it now. Like his jumper's broken.
Was that my internet? Or you, oh, okay, you froze for a second. I wasn't sure if it was me or if it was you. But in regards to like the people who look at an Instagram clip or a Twitter clip and then criticize his shooting form, I think that's just stupid and absurd because these guys have the best coaches that they can find. The team invests in putting them around the best people for their shots. Beeline isn't making any major adjustments that the player is not signing off for in terms of trying to improve their shooting. So yes, I understand body mechanics and all this other kind of stuff. I'm not going to be an armchair quarterback and criticize what someone's doing with their shooting because I just don't think it makes sense at all from our position to do that. We don't see what drills they're doing. We don't see what their coaches have. We have no clue. We're just looking at a clip. Oh, he changed his form. His elbow's in, his elbow's out. It's going flatter, whatever. It's like, so I give that, no credit at all. But I just think it's going to take time. But I do believe almost every player can improve their shooting if they put the time in. I mean, you look at Lonzo Ball. That shot was atrocious, and he changed that thing. I mean, and not everyone can do it, but like Jason Kidd became a great three-point shooter. It just depends on putting in the work, making the adjustments. But people criticizing it over, a 10-game span, like, come on, guys. I don't get that.
Yeah, I agree. And it also doesn't take into account the type of shots he's asked to take where he's covered, he's doing it off the dribble, sometimes without a pick, just doing it in ISO and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Everything you just said, 100. So I'll give you some numbers. Cade's mid-range sword. I was saying when I first started, like, this is the year where he's going to sharpen that sword to where in 2 to 3 years it's going to be what murders everybody. Well, the time is now, it would seem. So between 8 and 24 feet, he is 38 of 76, which is 50% exactly. Shooting 50% on mid-rangers is CP3 level. There's a tweet out there, and I'll put it in the description for this episode that showed Cade and CP3's, mid-range shots since last season and starting with this. It's the exact same percentage. Like, as a second-year player, as a guard, that is... You can't say enough good about it and how great that is. And you see him getting to that spot. In the Bucks game, again, is a great one to see. That first game, he cooked him. And then that second one, they're just like, forget it. We're going to sell out. We're going to try and keep him out of the spot because we dodged the bullet in that first game. We gave him that open look at the end and he missed it. And then we gave him an open three and he missed it. Just, got cold at the wrong time. But again, they dodged a bullet there. And it showed how much of his gravity, like NBA teams already expect. You've heard people consistently after games now, like Giannis in that second Bucks game, giving Cade his respect and his due because he's the maestro. That's my own nickname for him because he just knows how to direct everything and play you like a string man. The maestro, Cade Cunningham, 50% from the mid range. Do you see that sustaining over the course of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't see any reason for that to change. Only improve when we get that lob threat in there. So I'm very happy with the progress that he's made, adjusting with the players we have around him. Like, I have no concerns about him at all. I think he's ahead of schedule. I mean, I think it's unfair that when everybody was trying to project our win totals, they're all assuming, oh, he's going to take this giant leap. Like, guys, that is not how progress works. It's not linear. I mean, his game could improve, but statistically, nothing really changes. But on the court, he's a much better player. And you just have to take that into account. But we automatically assume, oh, no, he's going to make a LaMelo Ball jump this year, and he'll be an all-star. It'll be like Luka. It'll be like this. And it's like, nice, but it doesn't always work like that. I'm just very happy with how he's playing the game, how he's leading everyone. His mid-range is phenomenal. So, no, he's A+.
Yeah, and even when it does take a leap, like look at KD's second year. He was like 25 points, shooting like almost 50, 40, 90 from the field and from the three-point range. Do you want to know the win total difference between first year KD's Sonics team and second year KD's team, which, oh, by the way, had rookie Russell Westbrook? Do you want to guess the win total difference?
I feel like you're setting me up for a trick question that there was like no difference in their win total, but what was the change?
So it was 20 wins with just KD as a rookie. I believe Jeff Green was there too as a rookie. Then they get Russell Westbrook. And the second year was 23 wins. So even with all those improvements in statistics, it doesn't always show up on the court because, again, they're trying to work things out. Defense matters a ton. Yeah, just, again, it's a great example of the points that you're trying to prove.
Yeah,
exactly
and
right
I mean,
there.
like if you look at our team when we didn't have Cade and then we added him in, it didn't affect our win total. But you could visually see, wait a minute, this guy is controlling the game. This is completely different. It didn't change wins. It wasn't like when the Spurs got Tim Duncan and they had that huge change overnight in wins because that team was already set up. They just had an injury.
Well, yeah,
that's what made that
David
happen.
Robinson got hurt the year before, too. That was the thing.
Exactly.
They didn't have, that's why they sucked. And then when he came back in, it's that.
Exactly.
The one thing I will say with Cade is I really want him to get to the free throw line more. He's 37 attempts so far, which is third on the team, but it's only 3.7 attempts per game. His free throw attempt rate here is 19.3%. That's far too low for somebody that does have the ball in their hands that much, 29.6% usage. That definitely has to go up. But it's also, again, like we talked about earlier, part of it is how he's attacking the basket. It's not directly at the rim. It's more to the side with his hook shot, with like his scoop shot. So that's harder to get a whistle on those things. Also, the Detroit versus everybody, right? The refs just, for whatever reason, they really hate Cade and they really hate Beef Stew. It's something I didn't want to say publicly until that Hawks game where it was either Capella or Okongwu who just mugged him at the rim, right? Threw him right to the ground. No call. Like, that was not a play on the ball. Referees, what are you doing? This guy's going to get hurt if you continue not to make calls like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. So again, I want him to get to the free throw line more, but I wonder how much of it is maybe there's some kind of vendetta against him, because when those type of things happen, it just makes you wonder what do you got to do to get a call?
Yeah, no, the calls have been bad, but to be honest, in a lot of games, the calls have been just weird. Like the NBA sends out a email about we're going to focus more on carrying and traveling or whatever. Jeremy Grant's game winner, like how many steps did he take last night before he hit that game winner? I mean, that was obvious traveling. And then Tyler Hero hit a game winner, and that was traveling. But it's nice that they tell us in the reviews, but the other team still gets the win. But, you know, it's rough. But, yeah, I do wish you could get to the free throw line more.
Consistency from the refs, consistently inconsistent, right? So ridiculous. Anyway, I want to thank again my guest here. I'm trying to navigate saying data-driven Piston fans and guest here. That's where the mind goes on the weekends. Nowhere. So thanks again to Andy, data-driven Piston fans. Tell everybody where they can find you, what you're going to be dropping on Twitter, coming up with all these lineups.
So it was funny when you messaged me about this, because I was actually going to do a 10-game review write-up. I know a lot of people like to do them in 20 games, but I like to do them at 10 and then see what changes over the next 10. Like, is there a trend? Does the offense improve? Defense? How does the rotation change? All of that. And for me, as the season goes out, I'm looking to monitor the minutes rotation to see if that can give us a clue into, are we focusing more on development? Are we still trying to win? Are we secretly tanking? Like, what are we doing based on the rotation that we see? But really, right now, the only spot you can find me is on Twitter.
Thank you so much again, Andy, for coming on, and we will see you next time.